Welcome to the end of Phase 3. Hey everyone, we're going to do a stage check this week, and it's going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones. For a lot of these videos, I actually have a script and I've got it on my teleprompter, and it really directly matches what's in the blog post. This week, it's going to be different because I want to walk through some stuff verbally and focus a little bit differently than how I wrote things up in the post. So they're going to be complementary and a little bit overlapping, but I'm not going to go through absolutely everything in the post, which is a little bit longer. This is our third stage check, at least if my math is correct. And we have just finished a major phase of implementation. Where we are today is that we have really set that foundation for a secure organization and IAM. And that's really been our focus. Let's knock out the essentials for the organization for the IAM. What I want to do today is go into more detail about why we did things the way we did. It turns out I've been following a roadmap, and I want to give you insight into that. Now, if you go jump over to the post, and I'll make sure that that's linked in here, you'll be able to see that there's about 4 different sources that I've been using to kind of guide us as we go along. Yeah, I know a lot of this stuff, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that I can miss, and it's important to take a structured approach to cloud security. You'll see I reference the work of Chris Ferris, the work of Scott Piper, Amazon's documentation, and something known as the Cloud Security Maturity Model. This is something that we here at Securosis wrote, myself and my partner, Mike Rothman, and we just did a major update of it pretty recently. And the Cloud Security Maturity Model, for me, is encapsulating my approach to cloud security and showing people what that journey can look like. And I'll put the link in, and it's in the blog post so you can get it. What I want to do now is I want to pop open that maturity model, and we're going to focus on talking about what we have done, how it fits into that, and why that's important for security. This is our chance to zoom out and have an understanding of why we've done what we've done other than being in the nitty-gritty of all the technical labs. All right, so let's go take a look. This is the PDF of the maturity model, and I want to just give you a quick second on what this overall structure is, and then we're going to jump into how we've been using it as we've gone through in these labs. So like any maturity model, we've got the standard 5 levels of maturity, and the goal of this model is to tell a story. And that story is, what does the journey of cloud security look like from an immature organization to a mature organization? And I didn't mean to do it when we originally wrote this, but it turns out it works really well as a security framework because of the structure we built. And that structure is encapsulated in a couple of things. So we have 3 domains. Those are foundational, structural, and procedural. And the idea being that the foundational domain is the core critical things you should be doing first that are probably going to work across your entire cloud footprint. Then we get into the structural domains, which are going to change a bit more as we get into individual application stacks. And finally, the procedural domains, which are the things that are going to put you over the edge on maturity. Now, you've probably already seen, based on the structure of this, well, yeah, these are all things that we've talked about. And so that's been our focus, is on the foundational domains so far. And I want to walk through this, and I'm not going to discuss the maturity levels. What I'm going to focus on is using this as a tool for categorization and a tool for organizing our security controls. So we're going to be focusing on this chunk over on the side here, and we're not going to worry about any of the maturity levels up here. All right, so looking at these, let's go through and we'll start one at a time with them. So let me zoom in here a little bit on my drawing. And we're going to start with governance, and we've actually done quite a bit on governance, but governance is a little tricky because governance breaks into 2 sides. So there's technical and then there's non-technical. And most of governance is non-technical. This is around organization structure and establishing your cloud center of excellence. I'm going to not throw a bunch of those terms out because those are things we can get to later. Also, that's really not what Cloud S.L.A.W is meant to be. And I've got other trainings on cloud governance. If you're ever interested, drop me a line and maybe we'll do a Security Lab a Week version of those. Now, for the technical, most of the technical is handled through organization management. And this is where I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about today. I mean, like 2 minutes, because this is where we've really focused a lot of our effort. And if I look at org management, you know what, to make this a little easier, let's do org management in blue. There's a few things that we have done that tie in organization management and help us implement our governance. The first is our org structure. And this has really been one of the most important things that we have done in all of these labs. So that's setting up our organizational units and setting up our structure nice from the start, because this allows us to use the technical controls. And the primary one that we use here is our service control policies tied to the organization structure. This has also helped support some of our IAM. Now, why does that matter? Again, the service control policies, it's known as security invariants. These are the rules that we set that are enforced no matter what. And if you don't have a good organization structure, you're not able to implement those really well, and you have to customize them, and you can't. It makes it just a lot harder to set the rules, because those rules apply to that hierarchy with how we've set things up with applying those at our organizational units. Particularly when we get into our workloads and we have our prod, I'm going to call it, or our non-prod, which I'm going to just call dev to save us a little space, and our prod environments right now, because we're really going to be setting up different rules between those as we go along. So that org structure, really critical, really important. We put a lot of time in, because that structure will define our ability to set the rules and our ability to manage the environment. And trust me, I have gone in and done consulting and advisory work with a lot of organizations that didn't plan their org structure, and it's really hard to implement that correctly after the fact. Now, the other things that we did underneath organization management, which is really important, probably the most important, was our delegated admin. And the reason that that's so important, as we talked about, that management account has incredible capabilities to do things for all of the other accounts in our organization. And if an attacker gets in there, or somebody just even makes a mistake in that management account, that can cascade out and have some really bad implications throughout the rest of our organization. So within our org management, setting up those delegated accounts and delegated administration, and we did that for logging. And with our CloudTrail, we pushed all of those to a dedicated log archive account. And we did that for Security Hub, going into our security audit account. That's where we built our alerts so that we can actually get our alerting out of it. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And we also did that for our identity and access management, for management of our single sign-on. So for those key functions, nobody has to log into the management account anymore. And as we keep going through these lives, we're going to keep turning on more and more and more of these delegated administration features so we can take advantage of them. All right, so those are the main things that we used in org management. Now, there's a couple of things that we missed that we didn't really do. One of those that's a big one is cloud security posture management. And that's because we don't really have stuff in our accounts to assess, not enough yet. And it really wasn't the right time to do that lab. I wanted to hold off on that until we get into findings. Also, that means we have to talk about third-party vendors and not beyond just what we're doing in AWS. So we'll get back to the cloud security posture management part of that later and explain. But the easiest thing is to think about that is that's basically a vuln scanner for your cloud. It's going to find all sorts of misconfigurations. Of all of these, the most important parts of our organization management were our service control policies, because that's setting the rules, those organization-based policies, those security invariants, making sure that people can't do things like use the root account and can't do things like use regions we don't want them to use. And to support that, we have to have our right OU structure and then our delegated admin. All right, that was a huge chunk of what we set up in this phase. What we did is exactly what you would do in a large enterprise, and it's actually an area where you can have, if you go into an organization, you need to clean things up. Starting there is really going to give you a leg up. So the next is IAM, and IAM, remember, all cloud security failures are IAM failures, and all IAM failures are governance failures. See how all of this stuff ties in? For IAM, we did a bunch of different things. The most two important things that we did for IAM. One is anytime we had static, basically credentials user accounts, we turned on multi-factor authentication. That just has to be the be-all, end-all rule of everything that we're doing. MFA is absolutely the most critical piece of managing access to cloud and helping reduce breaches. It's not everything, but it's a huge part of it. The other big thing we did is we moved to SSO, single sign-on, and we did that through IAM Identity Center. This matters because it reduces the need for static credentials. That's what we've done here. We have really focused very heavily on getting rid of and minimizing static credentials. We do still have some. If you go into the blog post, I mentioned which ones we have. We have it on our root account for our management account, and we have it for our backup admin user for our management account. But you've noticed that's it. We are not using IAM users anywhere else in our setup. Way down the road, we may encounter some situations where we have to use those, but we have avoided that today. That's the biggest part, is setting those two up. Now, we also focused a lot on core principles. So that's that core foundational knowledge you need to better understand IAM. We talked about identities, and we talked about identifiers, and we talked about personas. And personas are implemented in AWS as roles. And let's see, can I fade this out? Let me see if I can adjust the opacity here so I can show this a little bit better. And nope, doesn't look like I can do it with the tool that I've got here. All right, so sorry about the colors and stuff, but hey, you're following my voice. So we have our roles and the ability to switch roles, which allows us to really use least, L-E-A-S-T, not that you can read it very easily, least privileges. And so the least privileges, basically, roles allows us so that even though you may have admin whenever you want it, you don't have to use admin all the time. And you can jump in and use lower level privileges and reduce the risk if those credentials get compromised or if that session gets compromised. So that's really critical with IAM. And again, our quick review, and I'll pull out the red for this. The biggest things we did were the MFA and the SSO, and that enabled us to better use our roles for least privilege. And we just learned a lot of core principles so that as we go on, you'll have a better understanding of things like identity-based policies versus organization policies, policy flow, all of those details. Okay, so we've now done 3 of the 4 of the core, and that means that the last one left, let's see if I've got a color here I can use that'll show up a little bit better. Yep, there we go, is security monitoring. And this is an area where we've implemented some of it. We still have a long way to go, but the key thing we implemented there was CloudTrail, and that's because CloudTrail is going to give us our management plane logs. And any cloud provider, any cloud service you use, the management plane is the most important thing to monitor. And why is that? Because in cloud, we don't have a management plane in our data center. We have a bunch of different tools and technologies with different logins that you can go into to make changes. There's no one management plane for your network and your firewalls. Yeah, maybe in theory, but in practical reality, there isn't for your workloads, for everything. But with cloud, there is. You can rewire the data center by getting into the management plane. So the advantage of cloud is it is all unified and we can tap into it and we can keep an eye on everything. If you've actually ever looked at breach reports for breaches in AWS, once the attacker gets into the management plane, it's really easy to track them because they can't turn the logs off. We always have those logs. But what we've done is we've set it up in a very resilient way to make sure we're keeping those logs over time. And we did a little bit of cost management as well. Oh, I got to get back to cost management because I almost forgot about that one. So we have our management plane log set up. That's the most critical thing. The other thing that we set up is our threat and vulnerability management for the cloud. What did we do with that? That was guard duty. And that is going to give us visibility into known active attacks using, it doesn't look at for everything, but a lot of the really common ones. That's why Amazon built this. That's why they have guard duty in place. In fact, I got emails from some of you that when you went to go ahead and log in and use your root account, you got some guard duty alerts after you set this up. And the key part of this as well, and the last bit of it, is the alerts. We have set up our alerting so that if any of that bad stuff happens, we're going to get those alerts over email, and we're going to be able to, know to respond to those. Now, our email alerts, what I would use in a large enterprise, not a chance, but it is effective for what we're doing with these labs. Oh, and the thing that I forgot to mention is within governance, and as part of that org management governance technology piece, we set up billing alerts. And the billing alerts is, cost management is part of governance. Got to get that in our heads right now, because someday you're going to be operating at scale off the free tier. Even some of the stuff we're going to do is going to start costing you money. I'm trying to keep that as low as possible. But making sure you've got those billing alerts, it can catch things like cryptocurrency mining, maybe even a little bit of ransomware. But on the other hand, it's also just to make sure you're a good citizen within your organization, and managing costs as part of governance. It isn't all about security. Okay, so that's a very quick overview of the main points that we have covered across these labs. And you'll see why this is a big transition for us, because have we done everything in this area here? Nope, we absolutely have not done everything that I would do. We haven't set up CPM. We haven't set up some cross-account access for instant response. Like, not all that core stuff is there, but a lot of it is. We're at a very strong foundation right now, and we're ready to start building things. That's where we're going next. So it probably won't surprise you that it is time for us to get into network, workload, app, and data security. Now, the one there we're not going to do too much with is data security. So we're going to be focusing on the network, workload to start with. And then later in another phase, we're going to get to application and data security. And that's, there's so much to talk about in these two areas, like years worth of material. We're going to start by building some foundational pieces. Then we're going to tie it back into identity and access management, for example. And we're going to tie back into monitoring and show how all of these things kind of interlock together. And I'm going to give you the foundation. That's what most organizations need when they start. Once we're done with that, then we can look at building things out a little bit and getting into the more complex environments, particularly some of those large-scale enterprise networks and transit gateways and shared VPCs and all these other terms that we haven't covered yet, but we're going to cover. So there's a lot to talk about there, but I'm going to really start with the core network and the core workload, which is a virtual machine, an instance in AWS. Then we're going to expand that out, and we'll also start building some application stacks, learning how that fits in, and learning how to tie in more of our data security as well. We'll probably then go on to incident response, and we'll cover risk and compliance and other things later. Look, we have years of material here. I'm going to do my best to keep up with it every week as we go along. For some of you, by the time you read or watch this or read that post, you're going to know if how well I've kept up with that. But we have a lot of material to go through. For now, we've got a very strong foundation. Now it's time to start jumping into those services. That's it. Please check out the post and have a great week.